Hey, what it do, YouTube? It's your boy Q, and look, if you're anything like me as a viewer, I know you clicked into the video, you scrolled down the bottom, I know, I've already edited this thing, I know it's a longer video. I wanted to let you guys know I tried to cut this thing down in length a little bit, but honestly, Loopy and I had a really good conversation. Someone who's been through quite a few different facets of ALGS and different kind of perspectives that we were able to kind of dig into and go over. Someone who's been in like the grassroots scene on the production side of ALGS, a coach in ALGS, and now also head of performance for VEXED. It's a great talk. It is a little bit longer, so make sure when y'all click in, y'all have some time to watch it. If it's your first time through, man, what up? I do a lot of weekly content evolved around the ALGS, news, updates, interviews just like this. So if you're looking for a place and y'all want to hang out, just in case you end up having to click away from this video, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and turn those notifications on, all right? But I'm going to go ahead and let y'all get down to it. Just want to let y'all know why it's a little bit longer of a video, but I promise it's a banging interview. I hope y'all enjoy. Peace. Hey, what it do, YouTube? It's your boy Q, and we're actually a few weeks into Split 2 of ALGS, and actually when you think about it, we're at about 40% of the way through the split here for some regions when you account regional finals as like that single session. Kind of crazy when you think about it, because it seems like the season really just started, the session anyways, really just started. And sitting in third place right now in the EMEA region is VEXED Gaming, a team that actually finished third in the region last split, just unfortunately came up a little bit short as far as in London, but they seem really locked in this split thus far. I mean, no session outside of that top six, even having a session with the win itself. They really seem locked in. We get a chance to sit down and chat with their coach and recently announced head of performance. Definitely going to be excited to kind of dig in what that really entails. Loopy, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good, doing fantastic. Happy to be here. Happy to talk about this. Really excited to be with VEXED, and thank you for bringing up my recent promotions. I was excited to talk about that stuff.
Yeah, I'm really excited to dig in. Now, before we kind of dig into the as far as the new portion working with VEXED here, also for people who maybe aren't familiar with the name, if they've been around the ALGS scene as a fan, viewer, consumer, however you want to call it, they've definitely been blown away by your free cam skills at some point on the main broadcast in previous splits. I remember actually having one clip getting quite a bit of love over in Reddit last split. So I must say, quite an interesting switch from production over to coaching, right? As opposed to where we often see in esports where like players make that transition into coaching when they're done, similar to how we talked with PvP over here on the channel heading into London. I'm kind of curious, was coaching something that was always like a point of interest for you? Was it always on your mind? I guess really like, how did that transition come across, right? Because I know previous to VEXED, you had worked on some teams in that manager analyst sort of role, right? Which I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I'm not exactly sure the difference in those, but I guess kind of tell me like your adventure and kind of moving into that more full-time coaching role.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of like to answer one of your questions, like was coaching kind of like what I always like had in mind, or was it how did I get there? Yeah, like I've always kind of like wanted to be a coach, and I guess that like kind of started like early on in my life. I've spent a lot of time engaged in traditional sports, baseball, football, basketball. I did cheerleading, I played rugby, and I also did Australian rules football. So like I've always been engaged in team environments. I also was in the Marine Corps, so like I've always, like I said, just been in high performing teams, like played on a lot of sports. My stepfather and uncle were both coaches for like 10 years of my life. So like I grew up in kind of like a coaching family, and like was always like, had like guys over, like players, teams, and like, what I mean, friends and stuff. And we're all part of a team, like playing together.
Right.
So like I've always just kind of been in like team environments. It wasn't until like after I got out of the Marine Corps, I decided to go back to college. And I was playing like college rugby and Australian rules football in like a travel league here in the US.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and like things are going great, but I just kept getting injured. I'm like 30 years old now, so like I was 25 then. And
I feel you. We're getting old, bro. It ain't the same,
No, it's really not. Like I like had a groin injury. I snapped my front tooth off. Like I snapped my pinky in half. Like there was just all these injuries that like just kept adding up. So like while I was in college, I was like just done with sports. The pandemic happened, and I was like still a competitive person. Like I still played video games and stuff, but like esports in my college like really is big. I went to Illinois State University, and they had all of these resources. I popped on to like the esports like board to like kind of like see how like they ran their clubs, and like they also had like varsity teams that got scholarships. So like being on the board in esports and then starting the Apex club there,
Okay.
really kind of put me in a position to like understand like kind of like the logistics of esports and like how to like run clubs and stuff, which gave me skills to like be a manager. And then whenever I like had the club like up and running or like was working with people who were in the club, like I did kind of have to like do a little education for people to teach them how to play competitive Apex, because I think that like the game that we play in competitive Apex is different than the game that you play at home on the couch,
Right,
playing
right,
pubs
right.
and stuff. Like even ranked is a completely different experience. So yeah, like as that went, like I ended up getting some production experience with one of the first college tournaments in Apex, which was Spark Series,
Okay.
which was open to everyone, but it primarily the first couple seasons had around 100 or so colleges that were partaking. I think it was like
Oh.
60 to 100 for like the first two seasons. And it started off actually with kill races, but my actual first gig was not observing; it was casting. And I casted that entire series, Spark Series Season 4, with Porosaurus and Mellowcrit. And then, like, I just realized that, like, I'm not a, I can talk, like, I'm not a camera guy.
I
Like, I'm
got you.
not sit in front of the camera all the time. So the next split, I was like, yo, I want to do observing.
Okay.
And then I found Fausti, who ran, like, Realm, and Bear and Bean, and, like, they basically took me under their wing, and I was within a couple of weeks already working like the only like cross region like tournament that had like TSM, Alliance, and
Okay,
Navi,
okay.
like all these teams, and I was like working on like the mainstream like within a couple of weeks. So it was kind of like a I'm in the right place at the right time at the beginning of like the Apex esport. I had already made some inroads into the college scene, and then with that experience was able to like get into the professional scene. Um, and like I guess after like I had that experience, I would just join Twitter because I realized that all the esports players were on Twitter.
Right,
I
right,
got on
right.
Twitter, and within like a month, I saw 303 Esports actually like posted a tweet about like an Apex manager, and
Okay.
so I was like, sure, yeah, I'll pop in. And they needed some help like organizing their team, like doing practices and stuff like that. But they were also going through like a transition where like they were looking to pick up a different team. So I helped them find a team in Europe actually. And that team that we picked up was like ASCII, Bambino, and Pure And in year one ALGS, they got 11th in EMEA. So it shows like that was during the pandemic, so there was no like global land, like nobody
Right,
played
right, right.
cross region ALGS. So they got 11th in finals, which was a great experience. But the org just like wasn't able to like keep up like the consistency and keep that kind of like talent there. So I kind of moved on to another little project. I continued to work in like production and stuff. Uh, but yeah, then came along Tyler, and we started talking, and I still had connections to like investors and people like within esports that were like looking to build teams and orgs and stuff.
Ah, okay.
So I was like, yo, I can probably build a team. Like, do you have a teammate? He's like, yeah, he's got a team. He was with Evo and Nex at the time, and they just qualified for Split 2. So that's when like Mutarium was founded. Like we got in touch with some investors and some other esports people. And we brought in Unlucky and Tyler, and we had Evo, and we did like a Split 2 run. I think we got like middle of the pack, like 17th. I can't remember. It's like 17 to 20 something, and it wasn't like our best performance.
Mm.
We had a lot of struggles just because we didn't have like an IGL and stuff, and I also was a manager, so I was like, I can't like necessarily interject myself into like helping these guys get better without them like not taking me serious. And plus, I was also in college full time, so it was really difficult to do everything.
Had a lot on the plate. For sure, that's fair.
Yeah, had a lot on the plate, but I think it's just good experience for the players because it kept them in like pro league and stuff.
Right.
But like after Tyler and Unlucky, they left Mutarium. Mutarium wasn't gonna stick with the team just because it obviously like like they won't. I think orgs like have an incentive to keep teams that are like obviously winning and stuff, keeping their name out there.
Right.
So they left the org. They were just like, yeah, like we're just gonna find another team. And then they met with Matafe. And after that, like I went back to working production, worked ALGS finals at Raleigh with PGL. That was a great experience. Put me like up close with so many teams, so many players. Like I met Dark Zero, like all the players,
Seeing all this stuff
Sharky.
like in the back end too, right?
Yeah. I was again like I was a part of the back end. I got to meet coaches and staff from the orgs and stuff, and kind of put my name out there. And that led to me being signed as an analyst at E6. And to kind of answer your question, the difference between like a manager and like analyst and like even coach, like as a manager, like I basically did all the organizations for the team. I helped them connect with like the media people within the org, like
Okay.
help them like throw out content. Like I would clip videos and stuff and send them to like the social media people. At Mutarium, I actually did like video editing and stuff for like the players' TikToks and stuff like that, or like the org's TikTok. So like I did a little bit of everything, and then like as an analyst, which is kind of funny because like I actually like when I was in the Marine Corps, I worked as an analyst, so like a lot of what I did in esports, like or excuse me, in the military, like translated to like somewhat to like esports.
Right, just kind of like the daily
So
process, or like I guess the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that
Like
sort of thing.
I would just create like every day, like we would have like a breakdown of how practice went. There would be a lot of like recording our others gameplay, or like like analyzing what rotations are making, timings, like going into custom lobbies and finding like like unique places for us to valkyl, like all of these just like little miniature stuff. And like I would create like these reports every single week for us at E6 that would basically be like, this is what we experienced this week, this is what we've experienced so far, these are our expectations, because we played Edge, which I believe that Edge requires like a lot of intelligence on like your opponents, what they
Needs to,
do,
yeah.
where they're gonna be, and I think it's a different play style, obviously. That's not necessarily less disciplined, but like just requires like a lot more information so you can make informed decisions. Because at the end of the day, like when you're Edge, like you're playing to fight in a way, right? Or to get a spot to fight and potentially win. But for the most part, you play for a lot of kills on
Right,
Edge,
you're
which
more
makes it
you're worried about frags versus placement, kind of in a weird way.
it's yeah, and it's a risky play style, right? The strongest fighting teams, they like to play Edge, right? Because they can win all their fights, right? And then it means that they don't have to be as disciplined, or maybe they don't look at it that way. Maybe they just don't have to do some of the other stuff that like a team who plays zones, who's super cognizant of their like timings and stuff like that. And like so, as an Edge team, like really you just need to know what other people do, where they're gonna be, and like just fight them, right? So yeah, I provided a lot of intelligence and information for that specific playstyle, and also like to like our legend compositions. I like to be a little creative and stuff, so I would toss K Swinney some ideas, and like we talk about
So
it.
was it your
And
idea to have him throw on the roller, or?
no, so like that was, I think that's like K Swinney's thing. He actually had been talking about it for a while I was there.
Gotcha.
I think that's just more of like a decision on his end, like to not necessarily challenge himself, but I think also like he wants to play with the controllers, like that fits his team, because they just picked up Graceful, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think he realizes that he can potentially fit like a different role on the team while still like fragging out and still being the kind of player he is. Like he's an aggressive like IGL, right? He's always gonna put himself in your face,
In the front,
right?
like front, right.
Yeah. He's that guy, and so I think just giving him a controller it just makes him somewhat more deadlier, right?
right. With the state of the game right now, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you joined on board with Vex heading into Split 1 playoffs, right?
Yes, heading into Split 1 playoffs. We started talking around Christmas, and then I signed my contract like a week or two into January. So it was like we had like 24 actual days before LAN, and we had 12 days of actual scrim day and 4 days of boot camp before LAN for prep. Yeah.
So last split, before you jumped on board, they right about where you guys are sitting right now, in that third place spot in the region. And then you get to London, and to put things lightly, kind of came out a little flat, right? So
yeah,
I'm kind of curious. Was it a little bit of like first LAN nerves? Was it a little bit of like a different pace on that global stage versus that EMEA stage? Is that kind of what you're talking about earlier with the Edge fighting, and just sometimes those risks don't pay off, and kind of like, I guess, a little bit of bad luck? Like, kind of break it down for me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of like, it was a perfect storm of everything that you just said.
Okay.
I don't want to speak for like any particular player, but I think everybody, including myself, like experienced like this is our first big stage, like LAN we're performing, right? And that only became worsened by the fact that because of when I joined the org, I was actually not on the roster, which means that I was not able to sit behind, on the stage behind the players. So we spent a lot of time like actually talking about the potential of, you know, stress, of nerves, of like how to overcome those things, right? And so like we tried to plan for that. But then there was also, you know, like their game plan, like going into split one, like the actual split one, like group stage,
Right.
was obviously like a very edge heavy. So like they had spent the entire split playing edge and being a very aggressive team. And coming in, like I knew I had very little time. I couldn't like say like, hey, you guys need to do this. You need to make these changes. This is how
Right.
I want you to play. I knew that there was very little time for that. So like the only thing that I did was just ask them to be kind of creative, right, and think about how to win more, right, instead of like rely on KP. So we kind of decided on like, hey, let's swap our Valk and try to play Catalyst. We'll be like the first team to bust out Catalyst. We very early like recognized like the interactions that she had like with Seer as well as, you know, with other legends. Like
Right.
she kind of fit like where we wanted to be. And for a minute we were kind of, you know, performing in scrims and it kind of seemed like we were going in the right direction. But again, then you get hit in the face with like showing up to LAN, right? And then your first day being on the big stage, getting 19th or 20th, right?
Right.
We had to just kind of like circle back to comfort. It was kind of difficult to also like plan and like work at LAN. The only thing, like, because I didn't have access to the B stage, I didn't have access to main stage. I
Right.
had to use Apex Legends status to get every piece of information like that I could from like what the players were doing because I couldn't be there and like Nicewick stream could only, you know, like be in so many places at once. So like B stage, I'm like literally not allowed in the building. I have
Oh, really?
no, yeah. B stage was not accessible to anyone who wasn't on the roster. So me and the org staff had to like literally just stay on B stage or on main stage and just kind of like watch Nicewig's stream on our phone.
Mm.
And it was like, yeah. So like I was, like I said, 24 days, 4 days in person, and
Right.
we made one change, and that change was like play Catalyst and let's try to win because like we knew that playing Edge was gonna on in these lobbies was
Risky.
going to it's risky and like we knew that mid game like there's going to be a lot of teams up. What space do you have? Like
Right.
if you can't like secure a position, if you can't hold down a building, even if you're not being defensive, if you're still like poking, like the ability to have that like that cover, right? That's yours when you're being sieged is really important, especially in a lobby where everybody's still up and, you know, zone 2, zone 3, you know. Like it's crazy, right? So yeah, edge becomes extremely risky and my goal was just to see if we can reduce the risk and that. And at the end of the day, like it just boiled down to like an insurmountable task in a way because of just like all of the things that we had to deal with while there. You know, stress, not having your coach there, and
Right.
obviously, you know, like getting smacked in the mouth the first day and then have to go back to comfort. Like if we had a 10th place the first day, we would have made it to the next bracket, right? You know what I mean? So it's like really like just kind of like how you start and how you carry on throughout.
That definitely makes sense. And I mean, we were talking about it over here a couple days ago on the channel. I feel like when you take those edge teams and then take them to LAN, it's so momentum based, right? We even saw like ExoClan on the opposite side of that at LAN. They were very heavy on the momentum side, looking very strong, and then all of a sudden the wheels kind of fell off and the momentum, you know, unstoppable force met an immovable object, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
you know, it falls flat on its face. So you know, I'm kind of curious, Loopy. We talked a little bit earlier about your new role that you've got over there with Vex. Not just the coach now, but head of performance, which, from my understanding, reading through the news release from the team, incorporates not just everything in game, but to looking after the team's both physical and mental health as well, which I think is really cool. So tell me a little bit about what I guess that looks like now for you. Like, what's that day to day sort of look like for you? What are your responsibilities in that?
Yeah, so as the head of performance, my primary role is like to assist all the players and like achieving their goals like in the game primarily, but like also out of the game. And like you said, it's like fitness, nutrition, like mental health. I think at
I'm
the end of the
assuming you got a
day,
background in that then, I guess?
yeah, so like I was spending a lot of time in sports. Like I had coaches, I had performance people like with me, so like I learned a lot from them. And then like obviously like wanting to perform myself. But I'm also a certified sports fitness nutrition coach and from National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Okay.
And I'm working on their personal trainer certification through the same like course line. So like I want to be able to, well, for one, like I'm not a licensed physician, I'm not a licensed like nutritionist. I
Right.
can't give them plans to be like, this is what you should eat.
Right,
This
right,
is
right,
this is
right.
how you should work out.
It's
Like that
suggestions,
requires,
suggestions. Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, it's suggestions, but like whenever I am personal trainer, I can offer more guidance than I can build like, like workout plans and stuff based off of the OPT model and stuff that NASM has.
Mm.
But like that's kind of like right now, not the primary goal, right? The primary goal is really just to like connect with the players where like the org staff like necessarily can't, because I think when you're an org, like you have a lot of, I guess, responsibilities and certain staff. Like
A lot of moving pieces.
there's financial people. There's like our chief gaming officer. There's our
Right.
marketing. There's CEO, and then there's like owners and social media people. Um, Normally, like a coach in like an esport would like pretty much cover just like their esport. And I think that like orgs are finding that like, well, for the most part, like we're just pulling guys and gals off their couch and saying, hey, here, play for this prize pool, right?
Right, right, right.
And not to say that they're an investment, but I think that orgs like want to make sure that like the work is being done. Not saying they're not, right? But the work is being done, there's accountability, and then there's like a structure, right, to increase performance. And that's kind of what I do. An example of like something that we did was we worked with Fit Gamer, which is like an app. This is the Apex Legends team. So for those 24 days that I worked with the team, I had them download this app. I bought them subscriptions, and we had this dashboard where every day the players would track their sleep. They would track what they ate, not to the degree of like I ate one apple and I ate 43 grams of rice.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, did you eat a healthy meal? Did you abstain from fast food? How much sugar did you eat? And it wasn't like, did you eat 10 grams of sugar? No, it was like 5 to 10 or 6, or you know what I mean, 10 to 15.
Right. Okay.
And then
okay.
how much caffeine did you ingest?
A lot,
there was
probably
like,
for the gamers.
Yeah, there was lifestyle questions like, did you go outside today? Did you, like what did you do? Did you do anything like aside from just like being an esport player, right? And then there was a fitness aspect of it, which covered yoga, stretching. There was breathing exercises, and then there was like mental health stuff. There's a lot of like overcoming adversity, like a lot of David versus Goliath, like mentality stuff. And this is all geared towards esports athletes.
Right.
It's actually created by the Cloud9 performance team.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's got significant backing. A lot of college esports a lot of college esports clubs and varsity programs are partnered with this app. And it gives me like a dashboard where I can see like the data day to day, and then I have them enter and talk about like how they're feeling, how they feel today, and then we take that with like their actual performance. Like I have like all their scrim results and obviously like all their tournament results, and we kind of like overlay that to see like if there's any consistent
where it correlates and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's kind of like the that's super cool tech stuff, right? That's to get people like, wow, that's awesome. With being remote, like for me, it's primarily accountability.
Okay.
I really want to ensure that the players are doing what they say they're going to do, which is why we have a rigid practice structure. We have a rigid VOD review structure, and the same goes for the other esports players. Like I've worked with their fighting game player, Mystic Smash.
Okay.
He's like top 8 in the world in DNF duel, and I think he's like one of the best. He's like top 10 or like one of the best players in Guilty Gear Strive. He just got back from like the world championship for DNF duel. He got 8th place, and like we sat down and talked. We identified again like what he does in his personal life. Like how much time he spends practicing. Where does he want to improve? Like it's all like just kind of like seems like simple like stuff, right? But like I said, we're pulling young men and ladies and even adults like off of their couch,
right?
And some of them have never been in situations where they've like been asked to like do this kind of stuff, right? Or
think
where
long
they have
term and stuff like that.
Yeah, think long term, treat this as like a job, right?
Right.
And like that also ties into like the health aspect of it. I think that healthy gamers, being healthy makes you a better gamer, right? And I think that's finding that kind of value for the players. So I try to bring in as many cool tools and apps on like meditation, on habit building, like all these time management stuff. And I just try to introduce as many of these topics as possible to see if some of them stick, obviously, but to ensure that like they know that the support, the education, resources are all here, but like there's people to support them as well.
That
Like
makes
I think
sense.
it's really big. It's really big for them. Every player that I've worked with so far has been super receptive of this, and like they all like, oh, it sounds so simple, but like obviously when you're showing me like evidence and studies, or you know what I mean, like I'm actually partaking in this stuff, right?
I mean, I
I
would
feel
imagine the
good.
results are pretty easy to see because I'm sure it helps, like, I mean, them feeling better with better sleep and feeling better
Yeah,
about
the sleep
themselves
thing,
with,
yeah,
and
100%. The sleep and working out thing, like one of my players is currently like starting his a workout regime, right?
right.
And he's already like saying like, "Hey, like this is awesome. Like I feel great, right?" And I preach like the sleep thing like all the time, like cuz like I get a lot of sleep myself,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it drives me crazy when they're out there getting like 4 hours of sleep and
yeah.
playing like games all night, and I'm just like, no. we
Well,
gotta
I
we gotta
mean,
play soon."
yeah, I feel that. I do really appreciate seeing that. Expect. I hope more orgs kind of start doing where they're looking more after like the team's health, like the health of their players, right? Not just about
Yeah.
like good performance, but like good health from the players, which I think obviously, I guess in turn, it's like one of those, slow money don't make none. You take care of the players, they're
Yeah.
gonna take more care of you, which is really good. And it's interesting you bring up the whole sleep thing because I know a lot of times we see that gamers, you mentioned they're up way too late and they have that
Mhm.
problem getting to sleep. I'm not sure about you guys, YouTube. I know it's one of the biggest things that I hear complaints from people. I want y'all to know that GamerAdvantage is the leader in impactful eyewear technology that has been proven to help you sleep better, focus more, all without distorting color or comfort. It helps relieve headaches and eye strain, all while fitting comfortably under a headset. So stay in the game longer with GamerAdvantage. That link is always going to be down in the description below. And don't forget, check out code YoBoyCue is going to save you that 10%. All right. But Loopy, I'm kind of curious here. Vex, they've came out pretty solid thus far this split. Like I said at the top of
Mhm.
this, never finishing outside of that top 6 for a session, including a first place finish during the first weekend. And I think when we look at the region as a whole here and we compare the first 4 sessions this split compared to the standings where they were in the first 4 sessions like last split, it looks a little bit more top heavy, right? I mean, I know when I talked with Nasky here on the channel heading into the split, he had talked about how some of the changes he thought kind of from season 16 kind of would allow like the best to kind of separate
Mhm.
themselves from the rest, cream rise to the crop sort of thing. But and when you look at it, for example, last split, after 4 sessions, the top team Alliance had 50 points. This season, you've got 4 teams above that, and Horizon Union right sitting under that at 49. So, what do you think has kind of helped with this perceived gap at the top of the region right now?
I mean, I think Natsuki's right. Like the top teams, like obviously, like when changes are made, like they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
be on it like real quick and they're gonna perform. But I think it's like a little bit unique, like right now, just because I think the changes that were made in season 16 have left a lot of teams that were like, I guess, structured the way they were, like kind of like up in the air.
Gotcha.
Um, I think I think playing controller, right, for a lot of teams, like makes them think that they got to play zone, and if teams are have to play like a recon character, they feel like that maybe that makes them play edge, right? And I
Gotcha.
think that maybe some teams are like trying to build like specifically for like zone or edge, right? And they're still not kind of like sure like what their team comp is. I think that even like the first day of ALGS, I remember they had Nocturnal on, and he was talking about like his comp, and he goes, "Oh, we're still gonna like iron that out. We'll see
Right,
tomorrow."
right, right.
Right? And I think a lot of teams are like in that position where they see the slate of legends that they have, and they're trying to figure out like what comp like best fits for them. Like we see a lot of Seer Catalysts, right? But
Right.
that's a new shiny thing. That's what was deemed the meta right away. So everybody gravitated towards it and went to play it. But I feel like a lot of teams still are looking for like their identity.
Mm.
Um, but at the same time, I think that those changes and then teams trying to find their identity, trying to figure out like where they sit, is also like hurting them in a way, right?
I mean, that's
Like
something you can see across regions. That's not just
yeah,
one region or the other.
no, like yeah, I mean like seeing like all the different legend compositions. I think it's creative, and I think right now we have the capability with like how the game is made to be the most creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's like hard for people to not play or to not play meta one, right? But to also like find out what fits for them. Because like I think in this in this split, like you have the ability to play multiple ways, right? You have the ability to even to be hybrid, essentially,
Right,
right?
right, right.
To pick your own adventure when you're on the drop ship. So I think that requires a lot more planning, a lot more preparation. Which, looking at the teams that are at the top, like a lot of them are teams that have like coaches or like analysts or that have been at the top, right?
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, I think it's just like obviously like EMEA traditionally is kind of like a top heavy region, right? I think the teams at the top of EMEA are as good as anybody else,
Hmm.
right? But I think that we start to dip down like around like where you see that point split. Not to say that any of those teams that are below are not as good as the teams up top, but
It's
I think
usually just a
the
consistency, right?
consistency, exactly, the consistency. And I think we're starting to see some of those teams like bounce back and forth like from not week to week, but like even in like scrims.
Right.
So yeah, again, like I think it is kind of like an adapting thing and a planning thing. I don't know what every team does in the region to like plan and prepare, right?
Hmm.
Or like how they think, right? Or if they have, you know, like how we operate, right? But I know
Right.
that the reason why we are performing the way that we are is because of preparation, because of planning, um, because of the time that we put in. Like, I mean, for me, like as a coach, like as soon as I heard like the leaks of what season 16 was, I was already like planning, right? I was
Right,
already
right,
like
right.
formulating what I want to be, you know what I mean, how I want to work, right? And of course, it's adapted and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's the changes in the season, like it's just difficult, you know. Like you're going against teams that are very consistent and talented, and they have themselves figured out, and
And
you
you're
know
trying
you're
to
a
figure
fresh.
yourself out.
You're trying to figure yourself out. Some teams have like changed drop spots. I think EMEA also struggles because we don't have a lot of events, right?
Hmm.
The scrims that I host are the only thing that teams have. So
Right.
really, most of the time, like they're pitting themselves up against the top teams in scrims, while still like trying to come away from scrims with valuable like uh practice, right?
Right.
But like at the end of the day, everybody is coming to scrims to with kind of like different objectives and goals. So
Yeah, I mean,
like
sometimes
the
you do
practice
want to
that they
try
do
something
get.
different than what's normal, right? So some people
Yep,
might consider that like throwing or messing around, but for you, it really is
yep,
trying something new.
yeah. And I think that like when you have 20 teams are in the region all in one lobby, and this is the only chance that they get, like it's hard to make that practice worthwhile if you're not a
Right.
top performing team too, because you're constantly up against the top performing teams. Because the scrims that I host are performance based, so
Right,
like
right, right.
every single day the best teams in EMEA are pretty much playing in these scrims, right? And if you are a team that hasn't been performing, or like maybe you're like struggling right now and you're trying to come up with any traction, trying to make changes, and the only chance you get is to basically play against the best players, just like you're in ALGS. So
Right, right, right.
it's practice in a way, but it's difficult, I think, for a lot of teams to make changes. I wish we had more events because like I think that EMEA would explode like if we had more
I feel
events.
like
Like
that's
it,
even something you could say about most regions
yeah,
outside of
no,
NA
that's
for real.
you're absolutely right. Like if there was event structures, if there was like a way for like teams to play more consistently outside of just the scrims that they host, I think the
Yeah.
quality of Apex for every region would just go through the roof. Like truthfully, like, I mean I think that's what helps set NA apart, right? And that's why
The
they're so
third party
strong.
scene and so much other stuff going on.
Yeah, third party scene, the org scene, like
Right.
NA is kind of like where esports is popping, like in a way.
True.
So.
So I do want to ask a question here, Luke, because one question that got brought up while we were doing some watch parties this past weekend over here, since we do try and watch as much as we can from a little bit of each region.
Mhm.
Well, other than South America, because your boy's going to be helping out with some English regional coverage over on
Yeah.
the Team Singularity channel. Which, by the way, if y'all are looking for a cool place to hang out for some ALGS videos, make sure y'all slap that subscribe button, turn those notifications on. But Loopy, last week, someone in the chat was kind of asking if my strategy would change or my composition would change based on if I was getting contested or not. So I'm kind of curious, as someone who obviously has to put together strategies and things, and with some of the changes with season 16, legends being able to craft banners, stuff like that. If there's a team that's going through a contest, do you think there's things that change versus when they're not getting contested? What's some of the, I guess, conversations with a team going into that sort of situation?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we switched actually from staging to siphon at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of this split, and we contested both GG and the former Invictus Gaming, which is now like part Jailing's roster
Okay.
at the same time. So yeah, like our strategy, like literally when we contested was like obviously win the contest,
Right.
but like
Other
we
than
had
loot
like
quick and shoot, right? Like
yeah, I mean we basically I wrote like a 10-page document on like the design of Siphon, like
okay.
everything, like angles, like screenshots of like basically like how like we
Peak
could
angles and stuff like that.
peak, yeah, like what places that abilities would work. Basically for a slate of like 9 legends that we were kind of like looking at potentially to use for contests. So yeah, like we did change our comp
Hmm.
for the contest. Um, I would say that like I think it's smart if you're playing in a contest, right? And depending on the POI, like to play kind of like legends that give you some ability, like to do damage,
I
right?
got
Or
you. Okay.
like a caustic or like even like a horizon to get down on the ground like quicker, right? You know, those kinds of abilities I think like really shine in a contest and can help you kind of get around the oh crap, I got on the ground and I have a P2020, right? What do I do?
Right.
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 Well, if you're a caustic, you can block a door. If you're a catalyst, you can block a door. You know what I mean? Like
Gotcha.
and you do damage, right? So I think that like those are kind of some of the thought process that we had. Like Maggie, like her drill, right? You get her ball in a minute 30. It's like the quickest ult,
Quick
right?
assault. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so yes, like I do like or we have like made plans for both POIs that we
Right.
have, Stormpoint and World's Edge, and we've practiced our contests. We've tried multiple legends. We found different interactions within, you know, kind of like the POIs, and then we've like practiced, you know, against other people, right? And then we went through and like executed on those game plans. Like honestly, like whenever we're planning for a contest, like we just focus on like securing the win and whatever happens afterwards, you know, like
It's bonus
so be
essentially.
it. Yeah, because like we know that one, your timing is completely disrupted when you contest, right?
Right.
And obviously you know that like you're gonna probably go from one fight to another after that, you know. Especially when we were at Siphon, we had some aggressive teams around us that were looking at third party. So like we just were like, we know we're gonna get third party, but just win the one fight that pushes people away. And I think with Jailing's picking up half of or the part of Invictus Gaming kind of pushed those guys over away from us, and then I don't. I think we maybe lost like 1 or 2 times to GG in all the contests that we have.
I
Maybe
got you.
more. It was kind of like we were just kind of like trying to roll through everybody. We really didn't care, and we were pretty confident just because like you know the boys when they get on the ground they're just demons aggressive, you
I
know.
mean, we get to watch them from time to time over here, watching it on the
Yeah.
POV. They when they're in their bag, they're definitely in their bag for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, definitely. We make changes for contests, whether it be composition or like where we land. We have multiple landing spots. Like I said,
Mm.
like for Siphon, we made like I have a 12-page document of like every angle and yeah, just little piece of loot on the ground. Yeah, everything. We're a pretty data-driven team, so we have that going for us as well.
I mean, even once you win the contest, right? Then at that point you can just play for placement because you've already got yourself a couple of KP essentially, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it kind of just depends on like where the zone is, right? Like
Right.
if we get on the ground in the contest really quick and we've got a reasonable rotate to a zone, yeah, we'll try. I think obviously like if we're contested and like the zone's far away, we're just gonna clean up on edge, kind of a thing, you know.
Right.
Just
Do
no
you
reason to
guys?
yeah, no reason to chase the clock, right?
Right.
You know, like we've already got KP, like we got the nerves out of the way. We won the one thing that you know we needed to win, that really, and yeah, we'll just go from there. But yeah, like the planning for a contest and the planning for like the rest of of a game is kind of like different, you know, because
Yeah.
like yeah, okay, you plan to win the game. You're like, all right, this is how we win the game. And then you're like, this is how we win the first fight in the first 30 seconds.
Which is the most important thing, obviously, because if
Yeah,
without
yeah,
that you
that
can't get to anything else.
exactly. Without that, you don't play.
So, Loopy, over the course of this next weekend, we cross that halfway threshold for this split here, right? And
Yeah.
while I have confidence that after this weekend, we'll be still seeing a lot of familiar faces in the standings, not just Vexed, but Fire Beavers, Alliance,
Mhm.
even Ascend right now sitting in that sixth spot. But, you know, we see some teams like Aurora, who's sitting quite a bit back in the standings, or who's even behind Game of Drones, which is a team that started the split with 0 points. I'm kind of curious, Loopy, as a coach, at what point do you start to look at the standings if you're one of those teams a little bit further back and start to hit the panic button, right? Because even we were talking earlier, some teams, even in NA, right, just don't seem to be where they're expecting, you know, the likes of TSMs, the Sentinels, who are far kind of performing under what we had expect. At what point as a coach do you pump the brakes and try and readdress the strategy? Like, is it too late now? Is it too early? What's up?
I don't think it's too late for those teams, for like Aurora, TSM. Um, I when do I hit the panic? I'm I'm not gonna say like speak for like like their coaches or like for the team like what's necessarily going on, but like I watched a little bit of like TSM in the beginning and even went back and watched like Aurora. I can't like understand comms and stuff like that, but I still like try to
It's Apex
get
still, right? Like
yeah. I think day one for like TSM, I think it was a very stressful day for them, and I think that just like where we had a stressful first day at LAN, right? That kind of rolls, right?
Compounds down.
Yeah, and I would say that we would really need to address like our mental, our attitudes, like what's going on. I think that would need to have happened like day one. Not saying that like it did. I'm almost positive.
Right.
Raven did his due diligence to talk to the boys, right? He's on his shit. I think though that like after week 2, like if things like didn't change, it would definitely we'd need to go back to the drawing board and address like I think the first thing would just to be like see where people are like making mistakes and see like what it is, like if it's a communication issue,
Right.
like is it actually like a nerves issue, like pressure, like mental kind of stuff, or like are we just like not sure of the game plan, right? Is the plan actually not good, right? Or
Right.
like are we a team that's built for this, right? And I think that's something that doesn't happen a lot in esports because of like metas and stuff like that. But something that happens a lot in traditional sports is like building around the players that you have.
Right, building around your strengths versus building around just what's the normal strength of whatever likes the flavor.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Like like a football team with athletes isn't going to run the power I, right?
Right.
They're going to run the spread offense. So I think maybe like if I was like a coach of Aurora or a TSM, like I would just like see if like maybe like I can identify like a composition that would allow them to be strong, each player comfortable and strong, which I'm not saying that like it's wrong to play meta, but I think that sometimes people benefit from playing something different and being unique, and maybe the comp that they're running isn't working. I don't necessarily know. I don't want to step on anyone's toes and say
definitely.
like that's how I would look at it, right? Is I would look and I would again I would just like, okay, is our communication good?
Right.
Is our game plan, like are we messing up like our micro macro blah blah blah, like
are
that
we
kind
making
of stuff.
Mistakes, or is it actually just like bad rotations? Are we getting unlucky?
Is it actually like bad luck? Is it truthfully like everyone around us?
Right. Makes sense. Okay. Now, Loopy, before we get out of here, brother, as we've talked about a few times, we're about halfway through the split, right? Crossing that point over this weekend. And then we get to LAN time, obviously, after that. So do you think when we get to LAN, do our standings look pretty similar to what we see right now? Or do you see someone right now potentially having that, I think looking back to last split, like Fire Beavers type of second half of the split, where they kind of come from middle of the pack to qualifying for LAN? I guess my question is, are you expecting to see a lot of the names in the standings looking similar to now, or are you expecting to see someone like Aurora kind of make that, comeback?
I honestly do expect like a team like Aurora to be able to make a comeback. I think it's like one of those teams, like even if Fire Beavers like last year started not so strong,
right?
Like I was like, it's Fire Beavers, like
right.
I think every player that has a bad day, that has a bad split or even a bad performance should just look at themselves and be like, did I change overnight? And if that answer is no, then I think you just need to kind of like take it and be like,
averages
okay,
sometimes, right?
Yeah, like you have bad days. And I think that Aurora and I think a team Danish in EMEA like might actually like be able to step up, right? I see those teams being able to just like actually come out. Like I don't think that it's I don't think it's like too out of the park for them to make it. Jay Lings, I think Jay Lings is a good roster and they've been performing lately in scrims. Not saying that like everything about scrims is, you know, like truth,
Sometimes you
but
gotta
like
take for scrims what they are, right?
yeah, in EMEA, like we do look at scrim results a little bit differently. Like we do look at them and say like, okay, yeah, like there's performance. Like I think this team's pretty capable. But yeah, I think that Aurora obviously has a chance. I think Jaylings is gonna get up there, and I think that Danish, like as a roster, I think that they could potentially make land. I've honestly been seeing them like every single time I see them play. I feel like I see like an improvement, and then like recently in scrims they've been like performing like really well while having like you know a good weekend. So I think that they might come up and potentially qualify for land.
All right, cool. So Jay Lings, you're telling me the team I need to be keeping an eye out for, and
J
Danish.
Jaylings and Danish. I mean, I think Jaylings is currently like right on the edge,
Right.
right? And Danish is like right on the edge. Yeah, Jaylings has 40. Wait, excuse me. I don't know how many points they have. Ah. Danish is 11. Jaylings is 10th. Yeah,
Okay.
and Jaylings was 46 and Danish with 44, right? And like I said, like those teams, I feel like Aurora maybe like started a little bit slower, like Jaylings for sure, like they're a top team. They started actually pretty well, but
Have
I
that
think
pop
that
potential.
yeah, and then they popped off, and exactly they have that pop potential. They're on a new roster, like they've haven't had too much time to like you know like play together, right? It's just
Right.
been scrims.
Only gonna get better from
So
here.
yeah, Nags is a really good player. Noise is a really good player. JMW is a really good player. Like JMW has experience on they all have experience. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
they're a good team. And like I said, Danish they're up and coming. I believe they have a coach as well. So like you know they seem like they're actually like improving. So I look forward to seeing those two teams. Like I'd love to see them at LAN. I love the Nags. I love Noises and JMW. I love the guys that were at IG. So I would love to see them be back at LAN and stuff.
All right. Now, Loopy, last question, brother. I promised you I wasn't going to take up too much of your time. I feel like I've already kind of
I feel
taken
like
up a bit
I took up
much.
your time.
No, you're good. You're good. I know you got scrims with the squad here in a little bit, but for our Tell Us What's Up segment here, sponsored by Ulti Sup, which, by the way, YouTube, if you're looking for an energy drink that has the only ingredient tested and proven to increase performance in gamers, backed with a completely transparent label, properly dosed ingredients so you know exactly what you're putting in your body, and on the back of that label, you'll find nothing unhealthy and zero sugars. If you ask me, probably the best blue raspberry on the market, but that's for you guys to decide. Link is always going to be down in that description below. Don't forget code YoBoyCue. Gonna also save you that 10%. But Loopy, I'm kind of curious. Vex started off strong as we approach this halfway mark, right? What does Vex got to do to finish this split? Not only to finish the split off strong, but then get to London and be able to duplicate that success. Because I'm sure y'all don't want to have to rely on that the Zephyr desk buff, as Tiff pointed out this past weekend, right?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. Yeah, it's gonna be cliche, but like discipline. I've really kind of like imparted on the guys that winning games is probably more important than kills.
Okay.
And I have said consistently that I want us to be in in-game positions to win the game because with the firepower that we have, like we can pull off a lot of wins. Last split we only had 4 wins, and we're already at two wins right now. We got 2 in one day. I want to see us win more and be more disciplined. Like it requires more discipline to win and not like get carried away and all these fights and stuff. Because I believe that like if we increase like our win percentage, if we start to win more games, like it'll just click. I think that the boys will really just go off of those performances, and like once they see that they can win and they see like that's kind of like part of the way to like kind of be successful at the top,
Right.
like yeah, I think just discipline and following through with wins, that's it. That's what's gonna keep us in the top in EMEA, and then obviously those wins, if we get them at LAN, are gonna carry us into the you know what I mean,
The
the
rounds where it
finals.
matters.
Yeah, the rounds where it matters. Like we had 2 wins at LAN, right? And we had 4 wins all of split 2, or excuse me, all of split 1. And I'm trying to get us to get like 6 or 7 wins, you know,
Okay.
right now, because I think that like again, like that's gonna get us the points. That's gonna keep us consistent, and you know the rest will follow, right?
Yeah, I think especially when you talk about momentum too, right? So if you had that 6
hmm
wins through a season heading into regional finals or especially playoffs, would definitely have a team feeling really
Yeah,
good, right?
I
So
mean, the finals, like again, the finals require you to win a game,
right.
right? So playing Edge in a lobby that is a match point, you run a lot of risk of, you know what I mean?
Right.
So like I want to get the players used to that winner's mentality, to like you know playing for the win kind of a thing, because at the end of the day, like a battle royale is to be the last team standing.
Right.
So I want my team to be the last team standing more often than not.
I love it. I love it. Now, Loopy, for people wanting to keep up with you, my friend, not sure if you happen to do much streaming or do much content, but obviously I know you got social medias and stuff like you were talking about earlier. So for people who want to keep up with you, or maybe even check out the squad come game day, where can they find y'all at?
I'm on Twitter under Loopy. It's a terrible little name.
I'll make sure I link it down in the description. Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm obviously on Reddit under the same name. I'm working this year to build a platform so like I can start streaming more. I want to be like more involved in like fitness and like nutrition, like health kind of stuff. Like more so than just like esports and gaming. Of course, like I do want to game. But I've always been a person who just like wants to do just more than like one thing, especially whenever I stream, because it's going to be a platform with people that like, you know, like want to see what I have to offer. So I think in the next year I'll have a platform either on one of the streaming services where I'll stream a couple of times. But at this time, I'm just kind of like working with the team, trying to build up and qualify for LAN. So if you want to follow me on Twitter. And if you like my Reddit posts, just keep track of the competitive Apex.
Just keep up voting, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, cool. Well, Loopy, definitely looking forward to seeing what y'all are got in store for us for the rest of the split out of the Vex camp here. Definitely wishing y'all the best of luck. Hopefully trying to find my way to get over to London here for either split 2 playoffs or chance. If we do, we'll definitely have to link up and say what's up person, man. Thank you so much for sitting down and chatting some Apex with your boy today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, man. Now, like I had mentioned before, we do try and catch quite a bit of ALGS action over here, not just NA and EU, but try and catch a little bit of every region. So if y'all looking for a cool place to kind of vibe and hang out, y'all can make sure y'all come back or just want to come back for the next video because we do weekly news, updates, stuff like that, videos just like this with interviews. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn those notifications on so we can catch y'all right about here. And also, big shout out to the community, man. We've been crushing it over here recently with these more interview style videos. A lot of people love kind of hearing from different people, different views, different, you know, players, different regions. So if there's someone y'all want me to try and sit down with, let me know down those comments below, or just let me know your favorite part of this interview, because those comments, those likes, those are really what helps me out the most, trying to get into that tough YouTube algorithm as we're trying to chase down that first 200 subs here on the channel, and we're closing in on it quickly. All right. So appreciate y'all. Until we catch y'all back over here for the next one, man. Don't forget, with everything crazy going on in the world today, be true, be you, be sincere, game hard and love harder. All right, y'all. That's Loopy. I'm Q. Signing out.
If you ain't show something, you just don't wanna be. You wanna be me, but you will never be as fresh as CUE.